Hello Instagram, it's Lisa here. How are you doing on this lovely sunny Sunday afternoon? I've just popped in to talk to you about my new book, Murder Most Mystic. I'm going to do a quick behind the scenes chat on how I developed the characters and what was the inspiration for creating the town of Poshwick. And yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks very much for all the really lovely, supportive, kind, encouraging messages that I've had since I published the book I published it midweek, but it was actually live before that. And so many of you, I've just been into town actually to see my colleagues at Lark, the gift shop that I work at, and they were all just so excited. I'll put some pictures up afterwards so you can see. I signed a copy for one of them. And yeah, it's lovely, but then it gets a little bit overwhelming and you feel like you need to go and lie down in a dark room. But no, I'm really pleased I finished it because it's probably taken me about 5 years to write, which is much longer than the first one took. So, the Dolly Sunflower Mysteries. Are you ready? I'm just going to read the back to you. Hang on, let me put my eyes on so I can see. Dolly Sunflower is a burnt-out and slightly unorthodox school counsellor at Twin Oaks Academy. Nestled in the leafy suburbs of prestigious Poshwick, desperate for some peace away from the demanding drama of her rich, image-obsessed clients, Dolly takes a sabbatical at Honeypot Cottage, where she hopes to write her first romantic novel. Things don't go according to plan when beloved television celebrity Hugo Hart is found dead in the swimming pool at his Poshwick Hills mansion. The long list of suspects include his wife, a snubbed ageing actress, his reality TV show girlfriend, and teenage son Milo, who is so grief-stricken he has stopped speaking. Time is running out. Can Dolly get Milo talking and provide him with a solid alibi before her young client is arrested on suspicion of murdering his father? Or will she have to resort to psychic sleuthing with the help of her dead grandma to find out who done it? Da da da! So that's very exciting, isn't it? And I have been a fan of murder mysteries since the beginning of time. I loved Murder, She Wrote, I loved Marple, I love Poirot, I love Midsummer Murders, I like Agatha Raisin. Can you think of any others? Let me know if you can think of any others that you like. Oh, Rosemary and Thyme, not really massively keen on that one. But it is a niche genre. The cosy mystery genre always takes place in a small town and with very quirky, quite eccentric characters with strong personalities. And there's always some kind of hobby or group interest that people are fascinated by. So in my book, it's the tarot cards, it's the tarot. And then it's also, as a sort of side plot, because she's a counsellor, you see how she works with the children at the school. Which, for those of you that know me, that's my other job, my proper job. But I thought writing a murder mystery was going to be easy. I thought, oh yeah, I've watched so many of them. And my first book I wrote in 30 days. So I was like, oh, it's going to be a trip. It will be easy. And it wasn't easy at all. And I think what I found really difficult was, well, first of all, I found the romance scenes really hard to write because there is a romance in the book. It's like a love triangle between Dolly. She's got her choice of two blokes. So, as my dad would say, they're like buses. There's none for ages and then they all come along at once. And Dolly has been recovering from burnout and she wants a break from her job and she's feeling quite prickly about love, like she's almost like pushing love away and not letting it in. So we follow her story arc is that she has to let people in, she has to accept help, she has to start trusting people, and she has to stop feeling responsible for all the world's problems and feeling like she needs to save all of the children who need help. That's her story arc. But what I found really helpful, I'm just reading from a blog post that I've written, so I'll share this with you afterwards because it's got more visuals and things for you to read. But what I found really helpful writing those scenes was listening to music. So do you want to hear my romance? There's no Barry White on here. My romance playlist to get me in the mood. But let it be said that cozy mysteries are very, there's no spiciness. So the sex and the gore takes place off page. There's a couple of cheeky snogs and a slow dance in my book. So it's very tame. There's nothing spicy. I don't think I could write spicy. It's not me. But my go-to songs for writing romance are, you might not know these, but let me know if you do. Let me know in the comments or tell me if you know these ones. There's a song called Any Other World by Mika. That's a really lovely song. And actually that is used in, I don't know if any of you watch The Good Wife it's on Channel 5 at the moment, but The Good Wife is about an office affair between two solicitors, and the sexual tension, or you could cut it with a knife. You're literally shouting at the telly and going, just do it! And that is their song that always plays in the background when things are getting a bit saucy. So I like that one. You're Still the One, which I think is a Shania Twain song, but I like it sung by Teddy Swims. Save My Heart by Jason Reeves. Slow Hands by Niall Horan from One Direction. Let You Love Me by Rita Ora. I think that is Ruby's anthem. I wish that I could let you love me. She's not letting anyone in. Love Is a Game by Adele. Oh, I just love Adele. I think she's brilliant. She's a wild heart for sure. And then Someone Like You by Dina Carroll. I think that's from one of the Bridget Jones films. So the murder mystery takes place in the town of Poshwick it looks like, but I like to pronounce it Poshwick. And it was easy for me to write about that because those of you that know where I live, there'll be some scenes in there that you will be very familiar with. So the Two Oaks Academy is our school here, St George's private school. Flawless, which is the hair salon and Botox place, is Collections Hair Club in the Queen's Road. Cleeks, as in Verve Clicquot, is the wine and champagne bar, which used to be Sullivan's. I don't know what it's called now, or I don't know if anyone else knows and they want to tell me, but it was called Sullivan's Wine Bar. And then Poshwick Hills, where the murder takes place, where Hugo Hart lives, is the very famous St George's Hill Estate, which is just up the road here, and it's where people like John Lennon and Ringo Starr, I think, had homes there, and quite a few celebrities live there now. We're talking 10-bedroom, £1 million houses. That's beautiful. And then Luna's Gift Shop. So Luna is Dolly's best friend, like her sidekick, and that's the Shooting Star charity shop in the Queen's Road. And then the Green Room, which is Magda van der Weer's vegan coffee shop or cafe, is based on the Juice Smith. The Juice Smith is actually in Cobham, it's not in Weybridge, and it's wonderful. If you've ever been there, I love to go there with my friend for a cup of tea, and they do really yummy vegan treats. So what's interesting about Poshwick is there is a mix of old money and new money, and in the book it says old money whispers, whereas new money is more in your face and it screams, look at me, I've made it. So you get a mix of characters. So I found it really easy to create the town because obviously I know it, and I know, how every town has its own rules and vibe and energy. So I know the vibe of Weybridge. I mean, I don't have kids that go to school here, but obviously I've worked with lots of families here. I've lived here all my life, and it's a place that I'm very familiar with. But the idea for Dolly, the name Dolly Sunflower, the Dolly Sunflower Mysteries. So Dolly is the name of my grandma, Dolly Parks. It's my dad's mum's name. And Sunflower is because in the tarot deck, I wonder if I don't know if I've got a classic tarot card here. No, this one's in the tarot. The Sun tarot card is the inner child card, and it's got sunflowers on it. And so for me, because my work is all about the inner child and having a voice and working with children, that is why I chose the name Dolly Sunflower. The dead grandma in the book, who Dolly uses as like her, again, another partner in crime. So she's got all these people helping her solve the murder. She calls her Gladma. But that is a nod to my Auntie Gladys, who sadly passed away in 2023. But she was always an enthusiastic encourager of my creativity when I was a child. So I don't think anyone else around me, not even teachers, sort of pulled that creativity out of me. Whereas she would always, I used to write poems, and she would always say, read me your poem, or read us your poem. And yeah, I could feel her all around me when I was writing my manuscript. And she was also famous for saying, come on out, sunshine, when she loved the sun. She always had a bit of a tan. She liked going out in the garden, doing her gardening. So yeah, it's a dedication to her at the front of the book. She was a really lovely lady, very, very creative, very domesticated. She was a seamstress, and she baked cakes and cooked yummy food. And yeah, she was a homemaker. I would call her a homemaker. So how did I then create the characters? So you create a world, and I think if you're going to write a series, this is a series, there's going to be more books. Writing the first one is the hardest one, because you're establishing the world that these people live in, and you're establishing their characters. And so by doing that, you're sort of laying out your stall. And then I suppose every book that you write after that is a lot easier, because you can just dip in and out of those characters. And if you are a writer, you'll know this. You have a character in your mind, and I'll show you how I develop the characters. Actually, I've got a notebook here that I can show you. And as you get them talking on the page, and you bring them to the page, they start having their own conversations. And it's quite remarkable what comes out, and they sort of tell the story themselves. And really, I think what they represent, if you're a writer, is the different parts of us, or the different parts of people in our lives, or people that we've experienced, and that all just naturally comes together on the page. But you have to allow it, you have to let it flow. And there are times where you think, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing, this is all going terribly wrong. And it isn't. But if you're ever doing anything creative, there is a messy middle, and things will go wrong before they go right. You just have to trust the old process, as they say. Trust the process. So what I did is, I don't know if you can see this, but I made a mind map of my characters. And if you read the blog post that I'm going to share with you, I'll share it with you underneath this video. I've actually taken a screenshot of that, and I've blocked out any spoilers, so if I've given anything of the plot away so you can't see. But Hugo Hart, who is the victim, is the murder victim, he is based on Robert Wagner in Heart to Heart. Do you remember the very handsome, I mean, he's about 90 now, but do you remember in the 80s we had Heart to Heart? They were a couple that used to solve murders, and they had Max the butler. When they met, it was murder. Do you remember that? I used to watch it on a Sunday night while I was eating my sandwiches after hair wash on a Sunday. So that's who Hugo is. And then Harriet Hart, who is his ex-wife, so they're no longer together. And Harriet's a bit of a thin, bedraggled, downtrodden woman, because she's had years of his gaslighting and psychological abuse. I mean, this man is a total narcissist, and he has everyone fooled because everyone thinks he's absolutely wonderful. So, and I based her on Sarah Jessica Parker. You know, thin, blonde, stylish, quite sort of unassuming, but, you know, she's got a side to her as well. The son, Milo Hart, the son who has the stutter, who is, he's actually traumatised to the point where he can't talk. And he is based on a very young Johnny Depp. You know, back in the days where he used to date Winona Ryder, and that very sort of young, floppy-haired Johnny that's like quite shy and head down, sort of don't look at me, doesn't really want to take up any space in the room. So this poor kid is like trapped between these two parents who've been through a horrible, horrible divorce, and it's been quite public as well. And he stopped talking the first the first time when they got divorced, which is how Dolly came to know him and work with him. And then, obviously, after the dad died, he then loses his voice again. But he doesn't have an alibi, or he can't corroborate his alibi. So she needs to then work with him again. So she's on a sabbatical and she's like torn because she's like, I just want to write my book. Will everyone leave me alone? So Gladmar is based on my Auntie Gladys, but when I have her in my mind's eye, like when she comes in and visits Dolly and helps her solve the crimes, I always think of, Betty White, you know, from the Golden Girls, the really cheeky one. Betty White lived till a ripe old age as well. I think we still had her up until she was in her 90s, and she did lots of work with animals, and she was a remarkable woman, but she had a twinkle and she was a bit of a pickle. She was quite mischievous, and I wanted Gladys to be a bit sassy, you know. She's a bit sassy because Dolly's not very sure of herself and has kind of lost the will, and so she needs someone to kind of like lift her up and give her some sassiness. And then there's a really funny character called Chloe Dressix, who is actually based on Chloe Essex from The Only Way is Essex. She's got like beach ball breasts, long nails, hair extensions. Are you mugging me off? She's quite an interesting character, and she was Hugo's younger upgrade, so she was the new girlfriend after he divorced the wife. Although there are lots of women around Hugo and they all have an axe to grind with him, so it's like, which one did him in? Well, first of all, we don't know that he's been murdered, actually. There's a suicide note by the pool, so I've just given something away there. But when they first find him floating in the pool like Mr. Blobby, there's a suicide note. And then the two love interests of Dolly are Jack. Jack's the gardener who she went to school with, and they've had some moments. They've been out on a few dates, and Dolly's just like, nah. And Jack's quite into Dolly, and that scares her off. She's like, no! And then Dan is the sort of more grown-up version of Jack. Like, he's a bit more responsible, a bit more suave and sophisticated. Dan Baxter, and he's the detective inspector who's come in to help solve the case. And so Dolly has to work with him a little bit because she's supposed to be helping him. And he's convinced that the son has got something to do with it. So Dolly's, defending the son. So shall I tell you who those two men are based on? Two of my favourite men. So the Jack, the boyfriend, is based on the lovely Tom Ellis. Give me a like if you like Tom Ellis. Tom Ellis is Gary and Miranda, but he's also in Lucifer. And he is a lovely man. And then Dan Baxter is based on Justin Baldoni. Do you know who he is? He's in Jane the Virgin. He was in It Ends With Us. He's a lovely man as well. He's lovely because he does a lot of social activism around helping men step into their vulnerability and voice their feelings. So when you write a book, what makes a book come to life and brings the characters to life on the page is not just coming up with their names and what they look like, but is what's their backstory, what's their motivation, how are they going to grow throughout the story, where are they going to be at the beginning of the story and where are they going to be at the end. And they all have a character arc and they're all learning things as they go through the story, and they're learning things from each other. And that's the bit that I find quite fascinating when you bring them all into the space together. Some of them might not get on with to start off with, and then they realise, oh, actually, I do like you, I can get on with you. Just like we would do in real life when we meet people. Like, we don't always like people when we first meet them, or we're not sure about them, and it takes us a while to suss them out, doesn't it? And then Luna, who is the owner of the charity shop, is actually based on my best friend, because we've got such a lovely friendship, and I wanted to honour that and write about it, because recently she's moved away, far, far away from here, and I miss her. And so writing about the friendship was cathartic in terms of grieving the relationship, because it's not, as it was, it's different. But it's still there and it's still strong, but it just transformed into something else. And so writing about the relationship was very cathartic, and I very much enjoyed that. And then there's the actress, Cindy Lee Kudrow, who's a Californian actress. She is Phoebe from Friends. because I love Phoebe from Friends because she's a little bit mad but always kind, very beautiful, and quite quirky and out there. And there's some other characters, but I won't get into that. But I have shared them all in this blog post that I'm gonna pop below here for you to have a look at. So that's what I did, and then I took each character and then I would drill down again and I would write like a page for each one. So I'd say I'd write a profile, I'd say how tall each one was and what colour their eyes were and where they went to school and what they were like as a child and why they are the way they are and what they're trying to get from life and what their struggle is and what makes them happy. And so you really step into the shoes of each character, and then once you know your characters, as I say, when you bring them together on the page, they just naturally take on their own energy and talk. I did have a plot outline. So when you're writing, you're either a plotter or a pantser. So I'm very much a pantser. I'm very much get messy with it, write it, edit it again, write it, keep going. I don't really like to plan stuff because I just know that the creative process doesn't work like that. However, when you are writing a murder mystery, you do have to plan, because part of writing the story is you need to have alibis for everyone, you need to have clues, and you need to have what they call red herrings. So there's always clues that lead you down a path and then they don't lead anywhere, so you end up thinking it's one person when it's another. I'd like to know actually, if you, as you're reading mine, if you guess who done it. But in here I wrote a grid, so I can't really show it because it's too many spoilers, but there's a grid and at the top it says profile name, facts and clues, alibi and motive. So everyone has to have an alibi and a motive, and if they don't, then obviously they're prime suspects. I don't know if any of you watch murder mysteries or you enjoy them. I'd like to hear which ones that you enjoy if you do. So I think, yeah, my editor wrote, I'm just quoting my editor, she said, I loved reading it. You hid the killer well. You have impressive skills in weaving a mystery without giving away the grand reveal. It's a hard thing to pull off. So I think maybe because I've watched so many episodes of them on the TV and all different types of ones, then perhaps I kind of, because there is a build up to it. There's a build up to the reveal. And there's always a midway point in the story where everything starts to come undone. It's a bit like the creative process. Everything starts to come undone. There's a point in the story where Dolly's so worried for Milo because she can't protect him and he doesn't have an alibi, and then things start to change. So so that is a little behind the scenes. I may come back another day and read you perhaps the first chapter if you'd like me to. Let me know if you'd like me to read the first chapter to you. I would very much like to. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So far, I've sold more copies than I anticipated, and it's quite hard when you're self-published because obviously you don't have a big marketing machine behind you. You're doing it all yourself. So as I say, any likes or shares or comments or interaction that I get from you, I'm very, very grateful for. Very grateful for, and I really hope that you enjoy being with the quirky folk of Poshwick and meeting Dolly and all the other characters, and I hope you enjoy her story as much as I enjoyed writing it. So thank you for listening, and I shall pop a link in below. The book is available to buy on Amazon in paperback form at the moment. I do have plans to make it Audible, to put it on Audible and Kindle, but obviously it's taken me 5 years to get this bad boy up and running. So please bear with me because I do have a full-time job now, and I'm limited in the times where I can write. But I do have a plan to write another book. So my next book is going to be a non-fiction book, and my next book is going to be about well, hang on, let me just find. It's going to be about co-creating inspiring and supportive learning environments where students thrive. So it will be more for counsellors, childcare practitioners, teachers, therapists, you know, anyone that's working with young people, and it will be through the lens of trauma. It will be trauma informed, and it's all of my work that I did with children for 10 years, you know, there's nods to it in this book. You'll see, like, the boy stops speaking because he's traumatized, and I really think that if we educate the world about trauma, and we can understand that the way that we are is largely because of how our nervous systems feel. You know, it isn't think happy thoughts. It's how we're wired from a young age. Anyway, I won't get into it now because that's a story for another day. But that is the book I plan to write during the summer when I have 7 weeks off. I haven't had 7 weeks off since I was at college. And so keep an eye out for that one. And if anyone's got any questions about the book, or if anyone wants to get in touch, you can message me on here, or you can contact me, lisa@smileyforlife.com. All right. Thank you very much. Bye for now. Thank you very much. Bye for now.